Good afternoon. We're used to saying good morning here with the WREA Educational Wisconsin Wednesday webinar series, but we are coming to you this afternoon. We appreciate the opportunity to join you. Hopefully this is a time that's worked out well for some of you, other than our usual Wednesday morning conversations. Welcome to our conversation regarding the basics of long-term care. My name is John Green with Association Member Benefits Advisors. I'm joined by from your WREA team, Annalise Ryans and Executive Director Diane Wilczynski, as well as MJ Woodall, who is our leader for AMBA up in the Wisconsin area. Just a couple of quick housekeeping details, and then we'll get rolling with our conversation today. We are recording this session. We take the recording usually 2 or 3 days later, put it out on the WREA.net website. That way you can go back and refer to it. And especially for this one, because the stuff we're talking about today affects generations, we'll be able to have that link for you that you can share this with your sons and daughters, maybe a spouse or loved ones as well, because it's a good conversation starter. So we're going to talk about this and roll through some of these conversations today. But if you've got questions, feel free to drop those into Q&A. And that is a very good way for us to track the questions. And if it's something specific to you, MJ can respond back, or we can answer the question as a group if it's something that pertains to everyone. You'll also notice there's a QR code down there at the bottom right-hand corner. Have your smartphones handy at the end of the conversation today. We'll show you how you can get more information about what we talk about today as well. But before we get rolling, I want to bring in your Executive Director, Diane, and let her tell you what's going on with WREA and lots of activities popping up here over the next few months and weeks.
Well, thank you, John, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. Just to let you know some of the things that are coming up that everybody is invited to and can participate in. First of all is our spring regional meeting, which will be on May 4th, and it's going to be held at the Holiday Inn in Stevens Point. And we have a lot of activities where people can meet with their district or their regions, their chapters, and talk about issues, get ideas from other people. We also have what we call the Challenge Awards, which recognize middle school innovative projects around the state, to learning about your strategic plan that has been rolled out very recently here at WREA. So we want your input. We want your attendance there to let us know what we need to do for the future to move WREA forward for the next 70-some years. Just a reminder, the spring primary is coming up on February 21st. Get out and vote. If you are going to vote by absentee ballot, request it now so that you get it in time and that you can vote. One of the races, obviously the major race that is focused on for the spring primary is the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. So be informed, learn about the candidates and what they stand for, and make your decision to vote. We also have coming up this spring, kind of the kickoff is at the regional meeting, but is our spring membership blitz, where we spend 3 weeks, May 8th through the 26th, working with AMBA, and they've been a very good partner of ours, to grow our membership. And we involve our chapters also and have all kinds of fun activities, from happy hours at different locations. We do a pep rally every Monday morning, to prizes for the chapters that bring in the most new members. So this is a way for everybody to get involved. Talk to your friends, talk to your relatives. If they're retired or not retired, they can join, because our goal here at WREA is to protect your pension and make sure it stays safe. And I have to give you a little tidbit. The latest I heard is that Wisconsin's pension is funded at 106%. We are the best in the country, and we want to keep it that way. So we need your voice, your support to keep it that way. We also have a lot of other events that we host, and you can go to our website, www.wrea.net, and under the events tab at the top, just click on it. It'll bring you up the whole list of everything we offer. You can click on the registration and join us on any of the events that that might interest you. From a committee meeting to my fireside chat to training sessions that we have a lot of stuff out there. So get involved, visit the website, and continue to support WREA. Thank you so much. And John, back to you.
Appreciate it, Diane. And Diane mentioned the membership blitz, talking about active retirees and active employees who are not yet retirees. Diane did a phenomenal job this past Saturday. We had the opportunity to share with about 200 active educators who are retiring either this coming summer or 3 or 4 years away in a pre-retirement seminar. And so this is an opportunity for us to continue to share the WREA message, bring incredible value to them. Diane did a phenomenal job, and there are many more active educators that need to be a part of WREA to protect that pension, to protect what others have worked for many, many years, to keep it at that 100+% funding level. So great job, Diane. Appreciate you doing that. And this is an opportunity for us to get out and talk with some of these active educators and get them to become a member before they retire. My name is John Green with Association of Member Benefits Advisors. I live a little bit north of Houston with my wife, who's a second grade school teacher, my daughter, who is a student teaching right now. And I've spent the better part of my career in classrooms helping active educators understand what their retirement years are like. So I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today to talk about a subject that's near and dear to my heart. Before we jump in to do that, I want to also have my co-host, MJ Woodall, who is located up there in Wisconsin, introduce herself and her family, who are all AMBA family members. So good afternoon, MJ.
Good afternoon, John, and good afternoon, everyone. So thank you. Glad that you are all here. As John mentioned, I am the district manager and I'm located in Menomonee Falls, Wisconsin. Two of the three individuals that you see in the picture there with me are my children that decided to join in the business. And my husband has been a really big help as well, too, doing different things. And then that furry little guy happens to be what brought a lot of joy to us during that time about 3 years ago. We decided that we were going to get a puppy. And so he was born in summertime in June, and we got him in August. So that first picture that you see is Bucky when he was just 8 weeks old. And then that picture to the right on the bottom is last year when he was 2 years old on his gotcha day. So he brings a lot of joy and excitement to our life, which is wonderful. And I just want to say I'm glad that you're all here. And Diane had talked about it. John had talked about it. Your pension happens to be one of your largest assets. And our role and our goal is always to make sure that we are focused on doing everything we can to protect it. And being a member, the small membership cost to be a member is what protects one of your largest investments that you have, which is your pension. I actually talked to somebody just a little bit before this call who also shared with me that, you know what, one of the things that they loved about being an educator was the benefits that they knew they were going to have in retirement. And that's what WREA does, is they help to protect that. So I'm going to turn it back to you, John. Okay.
Thanks, MJ. Appreciate that. And again, MJ said it, Diane said it, you're going to hear me repeat it again. What the value of your WREA membership in protecting your pension, any benefits that you've earned once you leave that schoolhouse, connecting you to your local members, your local community of peers, that has tremendous value. And the price of membership is small compared to the value that you receive in return. And also you get those extra benefits, the discounts, the fun stuff that come along with it as well. And some of those advantages are you can cover things that aren't covered when you leave the school. One thing that Diane touched on Saturday to a lot of those active educators is you're going to lose some things whenever you leave the schoolhouse. You've got a great pension, but there's some other benefits that you leave. WREA and AMBA can help you pick those up. They're portable. If for whatever reason you snowbird out of the state, go somewhere else, you can use those benefits all across the country. You can extend benefits to your parents, which is very important with the conversation we're going to have today. And some of our retired educators actually work a second job once they leave the schoolhouse. This proper planning could prevent you possibly from having to take time off of your job to take care of a loved one. So we're going to talk about today this whole concept of home health care, long-term care, the concept just of elder care in general, and kind of walk through some of the myths and facts surrounding care, discuss the need for it, kind of go through and give you an example of traditional long-term care products and what the makeup of those are, show you some costs, the current cost to provide care in the state of Wisconsin, and then some costs of waiting and some possible solutions for you as well. But to help MJ and I understand who's on the call today, I want to launch a quick poll, and you tell us what you've done for the future. If you'll let us know in there, if you've got a long-term care plan for your future. Just answer that yes or no. It's totally anonymous. If you're not sure, that's okay too. We did one of these up in Illinois earlier this morning, and they had about 50% yes and no, but there were about 5 or 6 that didn't know if they had a plan or not. And that's okay, because we want to make sure you've got pure confidence and total confidence of what you have or what you don't have, and talk about the process on either side of that. So we'll leave it open just a couple more. Last call, 3, 2, 1. And this, just about like we had this morning, MJ, is 50-50. We've got half of you, and I applaud that that you have taken the steps necessary to prepare for your future. We're going to talk about some of those things you may want to review to make sure that you've got opportunities and options out there. For the other half of you that aren't sure, that you haven't done something, you're in the right place, because we're going to kind of roll through and discuss some of the pros and cons, the myths and the facts, and just help you get more peace of mind. And this is why I do this. This is my why I'm so passionate about this subject. This is a photo of my father and I back in July of 2020, right around his 80th birthday. And he was in a memory care facility in Austin. He had been in 2 different facilities for about 2 years. This was the last time that he remembered who I was when I came to visit him. Dementia had already taken a hold of him pretty hard, and it was having a hard time remembering. He passed away in October later of that year, but because what he did back in his early 60s, by taking out a long-term care plan and putting one into place, he greatly impacted not only himself, my stepmother, but my brother and I, and my kids, his grandkids, because of the planning that he took in place. And so really, this impacts all generations. And the reason I say this is, many times MJ and I have seen the impacts of someone having to take off from their career or have to sell an asset to pay for a loved one's care. And with proper planning, you don't have to do that. I've seen long-term care issues tear up families because of the needs to care for a loved one. And because of what my father did, that's why I'm passionate about making sure that everyone understands what's available to them, understands how to use maybe what they already have purchased, and how to make sure that they've got peace of mind that they can protect not only themselves, but their assets and their family for the generations to come. I want you to take a real quick quiz, and there's nothing more that I love to do than give a pop quiz to a bunch of educators. So I want you to write down 1 through 6 on a piece of paper there, and just answer true or false to these questions. Long-term disability and long-term care are the same thing, true or false. Very few people need extended long-term care. Only people over 50 need long-term care. True or false? Number 4, nursing home confinement is the only long-term care option. Number 5, Medicare pays for everything. And number 6, I should wait to decide till I'm retired or till I'm in my 80s to decide this. So no matter what your answers are there, every one of these is false. And we're going to go through and walk through some of this conversation, some of these myths in here, and kind of share with you my experience that I've had. MJ's had a similar experience with her father-in-law as well. And just kind of answer some logical things, some intellectual things, but also some emotional issues. Because when it comes down to it, your peace of mind and how you are taken care of, that's the most important thing. And so if you've got questions, drop those into Q&A. MJ and I can answer those along the way, but let's get started here. When you look at it, it doesn't matter what age we are. It doesn't matter our situation. Once we reach age 65, 70+% of us are going to need some form of extended care in our lifetime. And what that means is it could be like my father's situation, that the dementia finally got a hold of him strong enough to where he needed to have someone babysit him, for lack of a better term, at home. And then whenever my stepmother could no longer take care of him, he couldn't provide for himself, we had to move him to a nursing home facility. Or it could be the result of a slip and fall and breaking a hip and needing to have time to recover in a facility for several months, that type of thing. So no matter what the situation, 70% of us are going to need some form of extended care. It's just a matter of who pays for that and how it's paid for. So let's talk about, and I really want to talk about this from the standpoint of the 50% of you who have some form of a long-term care policy. So I want to kind of go historical here and look at the components that make up a long-term care policy. And we're going to put this in the form of a hamburger. When you're building a good hamburger, you customize it yourself, you make it to the way you want to. I'm going to kind of illustrate this in terms of a long-term care plan, because if you don't have buns, then it's a a patty melt, for lack of a better term, or it's just, just some ground meat with some cheese on it. But a long-term care plan is triggered to use your plan when you lose what are called activities of daily living. So for the 50% of you on the call that have a long-term care plan already in place, there's some wording in your contract that probably says you have to lose 2 or 3 of the activities of daily living: bathing, toiletry, continence, dressing yourself, feeding yourself, being able to transfer out of a bed into a chair, or from the bathtub into a chair as well. Those type of things. You have to lose 2 or 3 of those to trigger your benefits that you receive. On the other side of the coin, it probably has something in there that says, or you lose or you have a cognitive impairment, such as dementia or Alzheimer's. So it's an either or. You lose 2 activities or more of daily living, or you have a cognitive impairment. And in most cases, the policy will say something to the effect that your doctor certifies that you've lost this, or that you have this particular condition, and then they have a care coordinator on their side that verifies and that it triggers your benefits. And so when you trigger your benefits, or the meat of the hamburger, the meat of the policy, it's a daily benefit amount, or sometimes it's a pool of money. And a lot of times, if you purchased your policy or your coverage through your school district, it's very possibly a pool of money. And what that means is that you're going to receive a certain amount of money per day once you qualify, or you'll have a certain pool of money that says you have all of this money that as soon as you use it, it's gone. So you've got the daily benefit. In my father's case, he had a daily benefit amount that paid the nursing home every day, or basically it paid him every month, but it was equivalent to the everyday amount of his policy. The other side is the length of coverage. Those pool of money policies, like most people have in the school district, it basically says your length of coverage is as long as your money lasts. And I'll show you what those costs are in Wisconsin, and you'll see sometimes that money doesn't last as long as you think it could. Or in the case of my father, he had the daily benefit amount that said he received X number of dollars per day for 3 years, 5 years, or lifetime. As long as he was alive, he received that coverage. Depending upon how you choose the length of coverage, how big the pool of money is, that really impacts the cost quite a bit. The other component that all long-term care policies have is an elimination period. Think of this as like a deductible on your homeowner's insurance policy, that whenever a storm comes through and you have damage to your home, it's that first amount you have to pay out of your pocket before the policy starts to cover your home. The elimination period works the same way. It's a length of time, usually 60, 90 days, or sometimes up to 6 months, that you have to pay out of your pocket to receive care before the policy kicks in. The longer the elimination period, the less the premium cost, but that puts more burden on you to figure out where you're going to get that money. Then you start to put in the condiments, so to speak, or the actual additional riders and benefits on your policy. Some include location of coverage. Some more restrictive policies say it has to be just a nursing home, meaning that you can only receive care in a nursing home, not in an assisted living facility, not in your home. Others talk about non-skilled services, meaning that if your coverage only covers you if you're in a skilled nursing home, or if you're having home health care workers come out, there's some type of licensed nurse. Others will allow for a non-skilled caregiver to come in and do the laundry, maybe help you change clothes, cook for you, do some light housekeeping, transferring things like that. Some policies have that provision in there. And then others have an inflation protection provision in the policy. This is one that I get a lot of questions on because it is, in my opinion, extremely important. If you took out a policy 20 years ago without an inflation protection rider on there, then it's very possible that the value, either the pool of money or the benefit amount, is not kept up with the inflation in care and cost of care. But the one thing about the inflation protection rider is there are many different variations, meaning some of them are 3% simple interest, some could be 5% compound interest. Some could offer you every 2 years the ability to increase your coverage. But if you don't take the company up on that to offer two offers in a row, you no longer have that option. So it really can get kind of confusing. That's why we have MJ in Wisconsin to help you review. For the half of you that already have a plan, review your plan. understand what you have, and make sure it still meets your needs. Because we're seeing a lot of companies, I don't want to say they're trying to run off their customers, but what they're doing, they're trying to raise rates significantly, which has an impact of running off their customers. And we don't want that to happen. You may have some provisions and benefits in there. So we kind of talked about long-term care in terms of an insurance policy, but what is it? What does it mean? I mean, we think long-term care, oftentimes we think nursing home. And my grandparents, that was really it. It was either you stayed at home as long as you could until grandma couldn't take care of grandpa anymore, and then he went to a nursing home. There are so many different levels of extended care now that go beyond the nursing home or go beyond just your home. There are communities, there are assisted living communities, there are communities centered around fraternal groups, religious organizations. There's even one in Central Texas that's just for retired teachers. So there are all different sorts of communities around, and extended care can fall into any one of those locations and how it's perceived or how it's received from the user's perspective out there. But no matter what the type, there's always somebody who pays for the type of care. Most people, they pay it out of their personal assets or savings, and that's very expensive. Or they rely on assistance from family and friends. And I'm not talking about setting up a GoFundMe to make sure that you're taken care of. I'm talking about your son or your daughter-in-law stopping their job, taking care of you, or you moving in with mom, or vice versa, something like that. Some few people enter the Medicaid program. We're going to touch on that just a bit. Others, like half of you on this call, have prepared. You have some form of extended care coverage that's going to take care of you. Again, you'll see this QR code all the way throughout our presentation. Have your smartphone. If you want more information, you can use that QR code as we go through there. Because you never know when you're going to need care. The older we get, the more we need help. I've noticed this with my mother the past couple of years, a little bit slower, needing a little more help putting up the Christmas decorations, taking them down, that type of thing. You never know when you're not going to be able to do for yourself anymore. And then with my father's situation, whenever he was in his nursing home outside of Austin, when he first was there, I noticed that there were people less than 50 years of age in the nursing home. And so I'd ask the nurses there, what happened? And sometimes it's accidents, traumatic brain injuries, falls, things like that. So you don't know. I was conversing back and forth with a retiree in Illinois this morning, and she was talking about her plans. And because she feels so strongly in it, she was having her daughters, age 48 and 53, look into something, because you never know when something's going to happen out there. Now, some of the myths that we hear, and I hear this in chapter meetings, I hear this at church in my mother's Sunday school class, is that, hey, Medicare or my health insurance, they're going to cover all my long-term care services anyway. Or that Medicare and Medicaid are the same thing. Or you really don't need to buy long-term care until you're in your 70s or 80s, that type of thing. All of these are myths, and we're going to take the next few moments to kind of dispel some of those and show you how Medicare works, how different private healthcare plans work, and how Medicaid is not really a solution if you're looking at it that way. Now, we talked about types of extended care. To me, where you're cared for is the most important thing. Long-term care no longer means you have to go to a nursing home. That's the beauty about your planning. It didn't make any sense to me to work all of your life, and thank you for working all of your career to take care of our kids and educate our kids. But it doesn't make any sense for me to you to work all your career, then when you retire, for somebody to tell you where you're going to live and what manner you're going to live in. You want to stay close to your community. You want to stay, connected to your home. So the modernized plans, the options that you have through WREA can give you the ability to stay at home as long as you can, give you the ability to stay connected to your community, whether it be an assisted living facility, a progressive care community, or a nursing home. It gives you the flexibility to decide how and when you need coverage. In my father's case, in his early stages of dementia, he was still safe to be left at home while my stepmother worked. Well, the further it went along, she would find him up in the middle of the night, wandering around, pretending to be an electrician, which he was not. And so she had to have someone come in to basically sit up at night with him to make sure he wasn't a risk to fall or to do something to hurt himself. That was covered. Then progressively, as he got worse and we had to move him to a facility where he could be taken care of better, we had that ability. We had the control. My father had the dignity and the control to be taken care of in the manner he needed to, and it still protected my stepmother, my brother, and I. Let's take a look at some costs here. These are some costs that I just pulled up. They're for last year, or actually for 2 years ago. They were released in April 2022. We should have the new numbers pretty soon. These are the cost of care nationally. And you can see there in 2021, a home health aide is $27 an hour for someone to come out to your home, provide those care services. It could be 40 hours a week, could be 3 days a week, whatever it is, but about $27. Then for the assisted living facility where you have a private apartment where you can participate in the activities of the facility, but you're still able to take care of yourself, maybe get a few medications delivered to you or administered, things like that, about $4,800. Then you move into nursing homes, semi-private and private rooms, get up there pretty expensive. Then you see the 10-year growth rate. This is why I stressed having MJ or someone look at your policies, for those of you who have a plan, to look and see if that inflation protection is kept up. That's a big concern because, as you can see, some of these costs have gone up 50+% just in the past 10 years. Now, in Wisconsin, those numbers are quite a bit different. And this blew me away. I do this webinar series in about half a dozen states across the country. And I can tell you the costs in Wisconsin are pretty expensive compared to the rest of the country. And so I went in and looked at Milwaukee, Madison, up in Eau Claire, and the different costs out there per month for a home health aide, for assisted living with your own single occupancy bedroom, nursing home, semi-private, and private. You can see they're pretty substantial, especially the closer you get into Milwaukee. And then you see the numbers in red. We've been doing this webinar in Wisconsin now for about 2.5 years. And this is the change from 2021 that has taken place. A lot of this is in the peak of COVID. You can see some of these changes. Some of the changes were dictated by the federal government. Some of it is, as we age, there's just more demand and labor costs are going up, things like that. So you can see you really need to pay attention. I want you to write down genworth.com, GENWORTH.com. They are the largest, or were the largest provider of long-term care for group policies, or like you think school settings. And probably you may have had a Genworth policy if you purchased it during in the time that you were at school. They have a cost of care calculator at the bottom of their homepage at genworth.com, where you can go in and plug in zip code, city, or state, wherever you want to, and it will tell you what the average cost is in your community. It's a great way for you to understand what the potential cost could be, and just shop around and see what's out there. But it's a really good opportunity to see what the potential out-of-pocket expenses are for you, because you don't know when it's going to happen, but you need to be prepared. And so who uses long-term care? Mutual of Omaha is one of the preferred providers for WREA of long-term care. They're, just as you remember, they're the company that used to sponsor Wild Kingdom, Jim and Marlon out there chasing down snakes and elephants and giraffes and stuff like that. But they gave us some statistics from the past couple of years that the average person who uses long-term care, who activates their plan, is 78 years old, and overwhelmingly it's more women than men. Because usually the woman, and this is, I don't want this to sound bad, but the wife wears herself out taking care of her husband at home, and then she has to go into a nursing facility because she just can't take care of herself anymore. Top 3 reasons for care: dementia, heart disease, and arthritis. As I saw with the case of my father, dementia was what caused him to have to use his long-term care policy, but arthritis kind of surprised me. But as we get older, arthritis can prevent us from doing a lot of things we used to do for ourselves. And that's where a good long-term care policy can take care of you as well. So when it comes down to paying, we talked about people spending out of their pocket, people using a long-term care plan, how they rely on different things. Individuals who have the plan to use their own personal savings, and if they've saved up enough, that's great. If you ever follow Dave Ramsey, he'll tell you if you've got a net worth over $4.5 million, you can go ahead and pay for your own long-term care yourself. Anything under that, you probably need to have a long-term care plan because it protects your assets. You can't call the pension board and say, hey, I want you to double up my pension because I need to go into a long-term care facility, or I need to have care at my home. So the funds that you have that you need to pay for this care may not be available when you need them. It could be tied up into a 403B. It could be tied up into some land, some family assets that you have to sell. And triggering those things could cause an income tax increase, could cause a loss in your future earnings if you're trying to save this for somebody else. Oftentimes what we see is that the first spouse that needs the care, they'll spend all of their assets to take care of the first spouse, leaving that second spouse with no assets or no money to care for them when they need it. So I encourage you, when we talk about this in a little bit, think about that in terms of how you would use your assets, because that first dollar is the hardest dollar to spend. Then I hear, well, Medicaid is going to take care of everything. Medicaid is truly a last resort situation for people with limited assets. You have to spend down all of your assets. The government does a look back of 5 years or more to say, hey, did you try to hide these assets? Did you try to hide your home in somebody else's name? That kind of stuff. And then usually what happens is they realize, oh, you're a teacher, you get a pension. You don't even qualify based on your income because of your pension. So Medicaid is not really the route to go. If someone qualifies, the state even goes back to their estate after they pass away and tries to get back what the state spent in Medicaid on their care as well. So I don't encourage Medicaid. I saw my father's first facility. There were 3 wings in his facility. 2 of the wings were private payer, meaning it was long-term care insurance that paid for it, or they were paying out of their pocket. They had a very high patient to staff ratio. So it was very well taken care of. I loved where my father was, but there's a 3rd wing that was a Medicaid wing. And it just didn't look like it was the place that I'd want to put my father. Patient to staff ratio was a little different. Maybe some of the activities, things like that. Again, Medicaid is really not a route for long-term care, especially for educators or retired educators on a pension. So let's talk about Medicare though, because there's some people say, well, Medicare will pay for my long-term care. Is that correct? And I'm going to give you 2 words, yes and no. Medicare does pay for certain parts of long-term care, but I want you to write these numbers down. I want you to write down the number 3, and I want you to write down 20, and then I want you to write down 100. Here's how Medicare pays for long-term care. It's only after you have spent a 3-day hospital inpatient stay. So as I mentioned, dementia and arthritis, those usually don't require a hospital stay. Those are usually chronic debilitating injuries or conditions that phase in over a period of time. So Medicare wouldn't even pay for your long-term care in that situation. But if you have a 3-day inpatient hospital stay, and then you're discharged to a skilled nursing care facility, so say you fall and you break your hip, you have it repaired or replaced, go to a skilled nursing facility, Medicare will pay 100% for the first 20 days. After that, if you're still needing skilled nursing care, there's a $200 coinsurance clause per day that you're responsible for unless you have some form of coverage, Medicare supplement, something else that covers that coinsurance. Then after 100 days, Medicare stops paying and you're 100% responsible for that point. Okay, so 3-day inpatient stay, 20 days is covered at 100%. After that, there's a coinsurance clause, but after 100 days, you're responsible for it at all. Here's where the tricky thing comes in. I said inpatient stay. If you remember the 3-day inpatient stay, Medicare and the plans that follow Medicare, they all have what are classified procedures as inpatient procedures or outpatient procedures. All that is a billing code that determines what you're going to be covered after you leave the hospital. Doesn't change how you're taken care of in the hospital, the procedures that are done, what's covered by Medicare, all that kind of stuff. It only means that if your procedure, or whatever it is considered an outpatient or an observation procedure, it means that Medicare covers none of the after discharge rehabilitation services or anything related to long-term care or skilled nursing. So it's important to understand that, because people labor on the misconception that Medicare is going to pay for everything for at least 100 days, and they don't. And then we have this situation to where, and I saw this with my father, if you are in a nursing facility, and my father had a fairly major stroke, had surgery after that, stayed about a week and a half in the hospital, and was discharged to a rehab facility to where they were getting him back on his feet, helping him feed himself. The minute he did not start to get better, that nursing facility has to contact Medicare and say, the condition is now chronic. It's not a rehabilitation skilled situation. Medicare stops paying altogether. So those days can actually be shorter than what Medicare says they'll pay because the condition doesn't get better. So if you don't get better, again, that triggers something different that way. The biggest thing was we didn't have to worry about it, regardless whether Medicare paid or not, because my father had a long-term care plan, and there was great peace of mind in that regard. That long-term care plan helped supplement any out-of-pocket expenses. It allowed my stepmother to continue to live in the condition that she and my father had worked for 30 plus years, and he was still taken care of. That was the blessing. He was taken care of the way that he needed to be in an environment where my brother and I and my stepmother felt very comfortable. We could visit him. He was happy. He, was loved and taken care of, and my stepmother could live that way as well. It protected all of those assets that my father worked all his career for to build up, to save for himself, for his wife, grandkids, the whole 9 yards. But most importantly, a good long-term care plan kept him connected to what mattered most. We were able to be picky at the facility that he was spend his time in. We were able to keep him home as long as possible because we were able to fund someone coming into the house to watch him for a while. A good long-term care plan, no matter what your plan is, can help keep these connected to those things that are most important to you. And for most people, that means staying at home. With a good long-term care plan, you can have home health services that not only provide the medical aspects that you need, but help with bathing and dressing, light housekeeping, that visiting home health aide, special equipment. If an adjustable bed and maybe some type of chairlift can help you stay at home as opposed to going to a nursing home, wouldn't you rather have that? A long-term care plan can pay for that. Sometimes it can help modify your home with widening doors, remodifying your bathroom, or putting ramps up to your house. That type of thing can keep you with your ability to stay in the house. That's what a good plan can do. And you get to sometimes choose your benefits. Sometimes it can be cash, meaning you just get cash all up front and you can use it however you want to. And other times it can be reimbursement, like my father's. Once we got him into the nursing home, got everything set up, then the nursing home billed the insurance company directly. They sent a reimbursement check. It was simple. There was nothing that my stepmother had to do from a financial perspective. Again, with your planning, you can do what you want to and how you make it easy for you. The one thing I want to stress, though, is the longer you wait, the more difficult it becomes to qualify for long-term care coverage. Once you get over 75, it's about a 50-50 shot. Part of it is because as we get older, we have more chronic conditions that come upon us. The other part is family history. In my situation, because my father's dementia, it makes it very difficult for me to qualify. So I've taken some other steps in different directions, things like that. So again, understanding that the longer you wait, the more expensive it can be is important. And that cost of waiting, again, don't worry about these numbers. I just want to show you that sometimes if you wait 5, 10 years, that type of thing, it could cost you more in the long run based on a particular plan that you're looking for. But there are other options out there. Even if you already have some sort of long-term care plan in place, I highly encourage you to review that, understand what's taking place within that policy, what your provisions are, what your options are. Some of you say, well, I may be too old, I can't afford to qualify, something like that. What we did with my mom was we brought a policy that was for a shorter period of time, for a 1-year time, that gave her $1,000 a week that she could use towards her care in her home. And that way my brother and I have a year's worth of time that if we think we need to transition her at some point to some type of other care or move her in with me or with him, then we've got at least a financial buffer to do that and get her house in order financially. So there are some options that can save you money and protect you and protect your assets out of pocket that way. So I want to open it up for questions now. MJ, you want to have some commentary maybe on your situation or what you've seen some WREA members do lately?
Absolutely. So one of the things I will share is, John shared his story with his father. My father-in-law, when my mother-in-law passed away going back to 2009, my father-in-law had Alzheimer's and they didn't have a plan in place. So it ended up going to my husband and I, as well as his brother and my sister-in-law, for us to figure out what we were going to do with Pops. And we took him in. He stayed with us during the day, really my husband, and I'll get back to that in a second. And my brother-in-law and sister-in-law kept him at nighttime. And then on the weekends, we would take turns back and forth. And it was a blessing to have him. I will tell you, my husband had to give up what he was doing, though, for a living in order to make sure he was there to help take care of his dad. And he still was able to do some things, just not as much as what he was able to do, before. But we looked at that to try to figure out, how do we help? How do we care for dad? Right? When there's 4 of us all working outside the home, and my husband's schedule was the most flexible. So it worked for us. It did, create some different challenges along the way, and good and some maybe not so good in some other areas. What I am seeing a lot of, though, is a lot of times, and my team is seeing, is a lot of times individuals are just trying to understand, like John, you mentioned it, I think it was with your mom, doing a smaller plan for a shorter period of time. Doing a plan, are you looking at traditional long-term care? Are you looking at something that's going to give you shorter periods of time? Are you able to get qualified? Sometimes you're going to have certain conditions that maybe you wouldn't get qualified for traditional long-term care, but you might for one of the other benefits. If you have a long-term care plan in place, do you have those first 90 days covered? Because statistically, most long-term care plans have what they call a 90-day elimination period. And that's that period that if you don't have something figured out for that time, you'll be funding that yourself 100%. Well, your association has actually endorsed a program that can help fill that gap that we can probably help you with. I've had a couple of people that have had to use the care, and individuals have had great results with the programs that we're working with. Some of them for care in the home, some of them for care in facilities. And they've been very happy that they've had something in place. But that cost of care is a real thing. And I think it was right before COVID. I had a lady who contacted me because she was looking for care, and she had fallen down at her church. Now, this was after all this had taken place that she was talking to me, but she shared with me that the cost of falling down at her church and her going into a nursing home, thinking that her traditional long-term care plan picked up, and it did, but not until day 91, that cost of care was $336 a day at that time for that nursing home. So she ended up having to figure out where she was coming up with $10,080 per month to care for her for month 1, 2, and 3. And I believe her check that she got from her long-term care plan when they finally picked up on day 91 was like $800. Because it only paid for a couple of days because she was only in the facility 92 or 93 days. So just understanding your plan, that's what my team can help you do. Understand what you do have in place if you have something. And then how is that going to cover? We can go through some different scenarios. We can look and see if there's anything else that you might want to look at, but just understanding that for yourself, understanding that for your family. A lot of times we have members tell us, I don't want my son or daughter having to shower me. I really just don't want that, right? I want them to come and hold my hand. And I think when I hear that, I know what I want. I have 2 boys. They love me. I know that. I know they would care for me, but I can't expect them to quit their jobs. And I really don't know that I want them doing anything else other than just coming and spending that time with me. So we get to hear a lot of different things from individuals. And again, my role and my team's role is to make sure that we can help you understand what you currently have, how that's going to protect you. And then if there's something else that's, out there that you might want to look at, what we can do to help with that too.
Great. Thank you, MJ. Again, MJ makes a great point. We've got about half of you on the call that already have a plan. I would highly encourage you, if you've got a plan already, take your smartphone, open up that camera feature, hover over that QR code. What's going to pop up on that QR code is a little form where you can say, I want a benefit review, or I want to find out more about long-term care. MJ and her team can sit down with your plan and show you everything that's covered in there, where your potential pitfalls are, for lack of a better term, and money out of your pocket. As she mentioned, one of our WREA members that had a 90-day asset gap, for lack of a better term, that she had to spend out of her own pocket there for that. Use that QR code. Let us take a look at it. Let MJ's team just give you peace of mind. You probably, or you might be on the right track, or you may say, hey, I don't understand why the policy keeps going up. What do I need to do here? You may have provisions in there you've never seen before. It's important to have somebody take a look at that for you as well. If you're on your smartphone with us today, or if you're on an iPad, you can just use my email address, jon.green@amba.info, and we'll be more than happy to get you connected with MJ's group as well out there. Okay. We have one other question here, and we'll move ahead. It says, I had a friend who started long-term care early, maybe $300 a month, something like that. She passed away at 60 with a heart attack. What happens to all the money she put into the system? Okay. That's an interesting point. This was a single individual. Teresa, thank you for that question. Some policies have some non-forfeiture riders in there that say if you surrender the policy before you go on claim, you can get back equal to the premiums you put in, or some are less. Some have a death benefit built inside of it. Some have nothing. Again, that's so important to have that review and understand. Most long-term care policies that I've seen don't really have any type of benefit for someone who passes away, as far as leaving it like a life insurance policy. Yours may be different. That's why it pays so much importance to get a review of that plan to understand what your options are out there. But that's a super question. And oftentimes we do find people that have taken out a plan that they're paying a lot of money on, and because of family changes or they passed away, what happens to that? That's why MJ and her team can take a look at it. They're all licensed in the state of Wisconsin and licensed to be able to understand and make recommendations and coverage questions answered that way. So keep those questions coming. I appreciate that. Just a couple of quick things to remind you. Part of your WREA membership includes a free benefit, the Passport program through myambadiscounts.com. There are so many things out there, especially with Valentine's Day coming up. If you need to make some hints to that special person about sending flowers, you want to send cookies to the grandkids, that kind of stuff, lots of discounts out there for you now. If you're thinking about, starting a healthy regimen, GNC has got some hot deals out there right now for immunity medications or supplements, as well as all different sorts of vitamins, things like that. Tax time is here. You can save money on your taxes. Or if you're thinking about getting out of the cold and coming down to the South and going on a cruise, there are tremendous cruises out there. Right now, there are so many cruises on sale, upgrades, free stuff on board, credits, all that kind of stuff. But this Passport program, you use it one time to rent a car, you're going to save more money than your WREA membership. So use that out there. If you've got questions about it, MJ and I can help you do that as well. Coming up, we've got the other side of the coin starting in March on Long-Term Care 201. MJ and I are going to go a little bit more in depth about other alternatives to long-term care, to traditional long-term care. And we're going to kind of show you some numbers, like I showed you a little bit with the Mutual of Omaha numbers, but we're going to show you the average time that most people spend in a nursing home, ages, what the conditions, stuff like that. So it's just another side of the coin, but really go into other options that you may already have, or things that you can do to cover that need and take care of you that way. Then we'll talk about the dental and vision plans. We're going to talk about Medicare again in May, and we're going to talk about the 5 biggest threats to your nest egg in early part of June. So let people know about these webinars and get back in and have this with your friends. Tell your coworkers, your former coworkers, active educators now about this series. Again, as I mentioned, Diane did a phenomenal job on Saturday to 200 future WREA members. Let those people know now what WREA does on their behalf to protect their pension and how they can help them educated. Because the worst thing that MJ and I hate to hear, and I know Diane and Annalise the same way, is when we talk to a retiree that says, I wish I would have known, or I had to change my career path because something happened to me. And if I'd have known, I could have done it differently. So please let them know this. It's a great way to introduce them to the WREA family. So MJ, we've had a few other questions pop in. Is there anything else that we want to address to the group?
So the question that popped in, and I just sent you something in the chat because I can't get a message out to everybody for some reason, but was a question about my phone number, and I gave it to the individual that had asked, but just in case anybody else wanted that, I was not able to put my name and phone number and email in that. So I just sent that to you. I don't know why, but thank you very much, John.
You bet. So that's out there. MJ's email address is out there. Phone numbers out there. You can also, if you want to get a hold of her, just simply use this QR code and open that up. You're on your phone, scan that, or you can email me. Either way, it'll go all back to MJ within the next 30 minutes or so, and she can call you. They always identify themselves, leave a message. They can do a phone conversation, a Zoom conversation. They can come in person, whatever's most comfortable for you. First and foremost, we want to take care of you so that maybe you don't have to go through some of the situations that we did, or you can have a great experience with the long-term care situation because of what my father was taken care of and what he did. So I'm going to leave it open for a few more minutes for questions, but I want to thank everyone for being here with us today. We're just coming up close to the top of the hour, and would love to hear from you. If you want to drop it into Q&A, you can do that. Or what I'll do, let me do this. Let me stop recording